Hi, welcome to Esther's Laguna Woods Show, where every guest matters. Today we have a very special guest. He's going to talk about wine and spirit. And his name is Vince McCarthy. Hi, Vince.
Hi, Esther. How are you?
Nice to have you here.
Good. Little nervous.
Really?
Never been done this before. Little nervous.
So today we're going to talk about wine and spirit. What is your background?
Well, as a wee little lad growing up in Riverside, California, I always had a passion for cooking. And I went to school in New York and I got a degree in culinary arts. I loved to cook from a very young age, and the natural progression was to go into the spirits and wine business because it was fun and I didn't have to work every weekend. So I've been doing this for the last 26 years, selling wines and spirits all over California, all over the western United States, and it's not a job, it's a passion.
So what kind of a business is it? Are you
I am considered a broker. I represent 7 California wineries, a import portfolio from around the world, and we also represent 7 distilleries. One of them is a local distillery, the second distillery to open in Orange County since Prohibition, based in San Clemente, California, called Drift. And it's a husband and wife team, and I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. I represent a distillery from Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, they do make spirits in Cleveland, Ohio, where my parents are from, so that was a passion of love for me. And I represent a distillery from Whitefish, Montana. Most people don't know where Whitefish, Montana is, but it's the entryway to Glacier National Park, and it's a husband and wife team that are making some fantastic spirits.
So how many different types of wine and liquor are there? I mean, lots.
That is one of the hardest questions to answer, because there's hundreds. There's hundreds of types of wine. If you talk about Italian wine, they name wines after grape varieties. They name wines after regions. They name wines after cities. In California, we name the wines after the grape variety, the area that it's from. In France, they name them after regions. And every region has, hundreds of different wines. So the question of how many types of wines are there, there's hundreds.
Hundreds, okay. So they all have different, the bottles are different shaped. Is there is it
There's
important?
a method to the madness of why each bottle is shaped the way it is.
Why?
I brought a couple of extra bottles here that we can talk about, and never travel without the good stuff.
They're all different bottles.
Yep. The first one we have here is what we call a Bordeaux bottle.
Okay.
The shape. Shoulders are high, tall bottle. It's got a pump at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
That is for pouring the wine.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Storing the wine. Absolutely.
Ah.
And there is the classic, again, Bordeaux style for a white. And then, of course, champagne. Champagne comes from the region of France, and I know we're going to talk about champagne and how it's made in a little bit. But this bottle is very heavy. You can feel it.
Yeah,
it's very heavy.
Yeah.
That's because there's pressure in here. The wine is under pressure.
Really?
From the method that it goes through to make it. It has the pump too for pouring, the proper way to pour the wine.
I never knew that.
The proper way to pour the wine
like
is not to grab it around the neck and
That's what
pour
we
it
do.
like that. There is a proper way of pouring the wine and opening the wine and so on. And you know, it's kind of a rainy, icky day outside. I think we'll probably have to have a little glass of wine in a little bit.
Yeah, later.
But their shapes of bottles are pretty much go along with the style of wine that it is.
So, okay, what is the, okay, now that we're talking about the bottles, they all have different types of
Closures on it.
closures. Why is that?
Traditional closer is done with a cork finish. Corks come from Portugal, come from a tree. A couple of years ago, we were having problems with corks, not holding a good seal, leaking, disease. Cork trees take a long time to because you're basically harvesting the outside of the tree. You're harvesting the bark.
Yeah, okay.
We weren't getting good corks in the industry. So up at UC Davis, the premier school for enology and winemaking, they came up with a way of called a Silva top, which is a screw cap. Everybody had the mystique of a screw cap being an inferior wine.
Yes, yes.
Well, to say the least, no. They actually took some very expensive wines and put it in the screw cap. There's a wine called Screaming Eagle, very, very expensive wine. Ask Governor Newsom about Screaming Eagle sometime.
Really?
Yeah, that's
What does he know?
he had a little bit to do with that wine.
Really?
But they put it in a screw cap. It was a $60 or $70 bottle of wine, very expensive. But they put it in a screw cap, and Davis put some of the bottles away to see how it aged. Because the traditional way of putting wine to age it was with a cork.
Yeah.
And they're trying to test it out. There's no difference in it. It's a good seal, it works, and it's all that. And then, of course, there is the traditional champagne with a cork and what we call a cage over it, which holds the cork in place.
What is the difference between wine and spirit?
Well, wine is a fermented product. Liquor is a distilled product. Wine goes through fermentation like liquor does. Liquor goes an extra step and goes through distilling it, where they actually cook the product. Wine we don't cook. So if you look at it, Welch's grape juice, you can make into wine by adding yeast to it. Very simply, you could add yeast to it and you would have Welch's wine. Alcohol or liquor has to go through distillation, which means they cook the wine and bring it up to a certain temperature, and what you're drinking is the steam off of it. So,
And
very
the wine you mentioned, they still have some living things in it?
Wine is a living, breathing organism. You know, they talk about decanting the wine. We must decant this wine. Well, you decant it because the yeast that's in the wine has died off. And what you're basically looking at is the dead yeast cells. If you've ever had a bottle of port wine, a very good bottle of port wine, like a vintage port, and you have to decant the port, you get these little crusty pieces when you decant it. The English call that crusties. They actually make a port wine where they call it crusties. It has extra yeast in it. And it's a tradition, you know, to eat those. It's just very sweet crusties.
Wow. Okay, why does some wine have more alcohol in it than others?
That has to do with the wine when it's growing, the amount of sugar that is in the wine. Because for wine to become wine, it has to go through fermentation. The process for fermentation is for the yeast to react with the sugar. The byproduct of the yeast and the sugar reacting is alcohol. That's why if there's more sugar in the wine, it'll be a little bit sweeter, a little bit higher in alcohol. For example, we'll go to what I just talked about, port wine.
Yeah.
Port wine is very sweet. People say, wow, this is a very sweet wine. They take a base wine like this, and as it's going through its fermentation process, or the process of it becoming alcohol, the winemaker will add neutral grape spirits, which is basically clear alcohol, to the process, and that stops the fermentation or stops the product from becoming alcohol.
Yeah.
By adding neutral grape spirits to it, that raises the alcohol level in the wine. So that's why port wine is about 19% alcohol, where this wine is 13%.
I like when it's higher. I like when it's 15 or something.
Yeah,
They even have 19?
19 to 20% alcohol.
Wow.
To be called wine, it has to be under, I think it's 21% alcohol.
And the lowest would be like what?
More than
3% or 4%?
Yep. So the average is probably 13%.
So can you tell us the history of champagne?
That's a great question. History of champagne. It was started by two monks way back in the Dark Ages.
Okay.
They were getting wine with low alcohol. The two monks were two very famous monks. They were basically in a race to see who could make a better, higher alcohol wine. One of the monks was Dom Perignon, which you know is a champagne house. The other one was Don Ruinart.
Two Dons.
Two monks. Good job, monks. They both knew that they could add yeast to it to bring the alcohol up. So what they did was they added yeast to the fermentation. Then they put the wine into a bottle and put a cork on it. And the byproduct, I said, of wine is alcohol. The other byproduct is carbon dioxide. In a traditional winery, the carbon dioxide goes off into the air. When you put it into a bottle, it has nowhere to go. So it carbonated the wine. Bubbles. And they found out that this wine was pretty good, and it had bubbles.
Are they different strength to it too?
Different
champagne. I mean, the alcohol content.
Yes.
Are they all the same champagne?
They're all pretty much about the same. About 12 to 13%
That's
alcohol.
all, huh?
Yeah,
That's
alcohol. Champagne doesn't have a lot of alcohol to it, not higher in alcohol. What people says, champagne makes me silly and all that. It's the carbonation. It's from the carbonation. That is a traditional way of making champagne.
So champagne is so expensive sometimes.
Takes a long time to make.
Really?
Yep, you first have to make a base wine.
Yeah.
Then you have to have it go through the secondary stage of bubbles, or you have to age it. Champagne can last forever.
Really?
If it's good champagne,
Dom Perignon champagne. Dom Perignon
Dom Perignon, Dom
Ruinart,
Sir Winston Churchill, any of the great champagne houses, those tête de cuvées, as they call it, or the best of the best, can last for 30, 40, 60, 70 years.
Wow.
If they're stored right and taken care of.
Now, let's talk about whiskey. Does whiskey have different alcohol content?
Yes.
Whiskey or vodka or all those liquors, do they have different alcohol content?
Yes.
What's the highest, lowest?
Alcohol spirits are all distilled we'll talk about vodka first.
Okay.
Vodka can be made from just about anything.
Potatoes.
Potatoes, rye, rice, grains, wheats can all be made by vodka. To be called vodka by law, it has to be distilled to about 190 degrees. Or 190 degrees.
Okay.
Minimum.
Okay.
Then it is proofed down. That's the process of adding water to it or aging it to bring the alcohol down. If you drank something at 190 proof, that's pretty much pure alcohol.
Wow. So what is the legal, how high?
Legally, it can be anywhere from 90, 100 proof, maybe more, down to 80 proof. Depends on what the distiller wants to make. We sell a vodka from Drift, which is a distillery here in Orange County. It's the second distillery to open up since Prohibition.
Yeah, yeah.
They're based in San Clemente. It's a husband and wife team that make the vodka. They also make gin and rum.
If people go there, can
Right.
they
They can go and taste it. But what Ryan likes to do is he likes to make a 90 proof vodka. He thinks that is where his vodka should be because he makes it strictly out of wheat. 100% wheat vodka.
Wow.
So he thinks it should be around 90 proof.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
What other things are whiskeys?
Yeah.
Whiskey is the category.
Yeah.
Inside the category are 40 different types of whiskey. Some of them that you know, I know one of your favorites is Scotch. Scotch whiskey comes from Scotland. You can't make Scotch whiskey in Orange County.
That's why it's called Scotch. Because
Scotch. It only comes from Scotland. Irish whiskey only comes from Ireland. American whiskey, anywhere in America. Canadian whiskey is the same way. Inside American whiskey
is
what we call bourbon, which is probably the fastest growing segment of American whiskeys in the U.S. right now. To be made bourbon, the distiller must follow 3 basic laws.
Okay.
Law number 1, the mash, or the components that make it up, must be 51% corn. So they have to make it out of corn.
Oh, okay.
Number 2, it has to be aged in new American oak. So when they get done distilling it, to age it, they have to put it into a new American oak barrel. Those are the barrels that if you've ever been to a winery and you've seen the big barrels, that's a barrel, 60 gallons. Brand new. They have to be, that whiskey has to go into that new American oak barrel. The third law is it can't be distilled more than 167 proof on the initial distillation. That means they can't make it any stronger than 167 proof. If the distiller follows those 3 rules, he can legally call it bourbon. Okay? If the distiller wants to make a rye whiskey, similar rules, except the mash needs to be 51% rye, the grain rye, instead of corn. Okay? After that, there's all kinds of rules and regulations to be reserved bourbon. It has to be aged 2 years in wood minimum. The interesting thing about it is there are distilleries out there right now that are making bourbon in 48 hours.
48? How do they do that?
It's a very interesting. It's a distillery in Cleveland, Ohio, called Cleveland Whiskey. Tom Lex is the distiller. Tom is an innovator, and he read the rules. And remember what I said, it has to be aged to new American oak. I didn't say how long. Tom found out it doesn't say how long. Yeah. So he ages his bourbon in brand new American oak barrels, like he's supposed to, for about 6 months. Then he takes that bourbon out of the barrel and pours it into an accelerator, shall we call it.
Okay.
Looks like a giant pressure cooker. Pours the bourbon into the accelerator, takes that barrel that he aged the bourbon for 6 months, and cuts the barrel up into squares, about a 1-inch square. He puts the bourbon chips into the barrel, or to the accelerator, turns it on, and in about 48 hours, you end up with a bourbon that is equivalent to 6 years old, with no color added to it. It forces the bourbon through the wood. It accelerates the aging process.
Wow.
So if you've ever been to a distillery,
yeah,
you open the door to the distillery and you walk into the barrel room,
yeah,
the first thing you smell is bourbon. And you think, heaven. Well, we have a term of that called the angel's share. It's evaporation. And it's about 1% of that barrel evaporating every year.
1%?
That the distiller will never get back. It's going to the angels. Tom, as much as we love him, he doesn't want to give up anything to the angels. So he found this way of doing an acceleration. Perfectly legal, and he's making a very, very fine bourbon.
It's good.
It's very good. Lots of awards. Lots of awards. He's doing some very innovative things. Wow. And to meet Tom, he's one of those, I don't know the technical term for it, but his mind never turns off.
Okay, so now people like to have white wine with chicken or fish and red wine with meat. Is there something, what about that?
Well, with my background in cooking, as we talked about earlier, that's a general rule, because fish, chicken are lighter in flavors meats. I kind of have a different rule about that.
Okay.
My favorite wine with chicken and fish and meat is the wine that I'm drinking. It kind of goes along with when somebody says, "What's your favorite wine?" Whatever you buy me is my favorite wine. Because at the moment, that's my favorite wine. But if we talk about red wine and white wine, and we'll bring in a third one, a rosé, which is probably the fastest growing category.
Why?
Because rosés are fresh, unique, they're soft, they're supple, they go with a lot of different things. There's a lot of different styles of rosé.
Yeah.
The one I have here is called Tropez. It's from Saint-Tropez in the south of France. It's where rosé was first discovered, if you want to call it. This wine, even though it's pink in color, it goes with a lot of different things. Yes, it'll go with your fish dishes. Yes, it'll go with your chicken dishes. Yes, it'll go with your pasta dishes. Yes, it will go with veal or a steak. It all depends on what you're eating, the mood.
Is it made differently?
Oh yeah, this is a Sonoma County winery. This is Sonoma County. This is French. This is French. You know, they're all from all over.
And it's made differently from the wine because it's pink.
If I told you that this wine is actually red wine, you wouldn't believe me, would you?
No, it doesn't look red.
It's a red wine
Yeah.
It's made into a white wine.
Really?
Because
Wow.
they don't allow the skins and seeds to have contact and sit in there. You ever had Pinot Grigio?
I think so. I'm not sure. Yes.
Pinot
I did.
Grigio is it's the most
Yes.
popular Italian white wine you can drink in the world.
Yes.
Everybody makes Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
If I told you that that grape was black, would you believe me?
Yeah, I believe
You have to because I told you that. But it's true. You can look it up on the internet. Pinot Grigio is also known as Pinot Nero. It's a black grape, but it's a white wine. Because when they crush the grapes,
Yeah.
they don't allow the skin contact with the wine to give it color. So it stays a white wine. Now, the grocery stores are going to hate me for this,
Yeah.
but next time you're in the grocery store,
Yeah.
walk over to the grape section,
Yeah.
find those nice black grapes,
Yeah.
crush them in your hands.
Yeah.
Juice will come out, it'll be clear. And you got that little bit of juice there?
Yeah.
Take the skin and rub it into your hand.
Yeah.
It'll turn black.
Wow. The juice?
The juice will turn black.
Wow. Really?
Skin contact, and the longer it sits there, the darker it'll get.
I'm going to try it.
You know, the grocery stores don't like me for it, but or buy some
I'm
and
gonna
take it
buy
home and try it
some,
out
I'm gonna
that way.
do it. That's funny.
So the saying is, you can make any white wine out of any grape, but you can only make red wine out of red grapes. Kind of general.
Okay, before we
Yeah.
what is more fattening, wine or spirit?
Spirits
Is more fattening?
got a ton more sugar. Now, I'm a diabetic.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was diagnosed with diabetes, the doctor said, "What do you drink?" I said, "I drink beer, I drink spirits, and I drink wine."
Yeah.
And the doctor basically said to me, "You don't drink anymore." I'm in the wine business. I'm in the spirits business.
You have
Find
to
a new
taste it.
career. Find a new career. Okay. Didn't find a new career, but I learned to adjust
So you just
what
a
I
little
drink.
bit.
I don't drink a lot of spirits anymore because there's a lot of sugar.
Okay.
A lot of sugar. Somebody that drinks drift vodka made with wheat, anybody that's diabetic knows wheat is another name for sugar. Turns in your body into sugar. So alcohol, spirits, has a lot more sugar in it.
So where can people find you when they want to?
Well, you can go to our website, which is Seize the Vine, which is our website, and that's everything about us. Or you can go to Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
And look up Seize the Vine, and we always have postings and tastings that we're doing. So
Wow.
those are things we can do.
Wow, great. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Oh,
we ran out
thank
of time.
you. And all of that.
Thank
Have a
you
great
for
day.
watching. Thank you for watching, and next time we'll have another interesting person. Thank you. Bye.